Welcome to Coco Tales Reddit, where we talk about the stories that get under your skin and stay there. Have you ever had a moment, just a tiny little pinprick in the fabric of your life, where everything you thought was true just unravels? It's funny how the biggest betrayals don't always come with a huge explosion. Sometimes they start quietly, with a shared laugh that you're not a part of, over a mimosa at brunch. It's a strange feeling when you realize the person sleeping next to you every night might not be the person you think they are. That the private, beautiful moments you've built together can be turned into public entertainment, a punchline for their friends. And you're left sitting there, with a forced smile, wondering when honesty became a license for cruelty. That's where I was, just a few weeks ago. My name is Colton. I'm 27, and I was sitting at brunch with my girlfriend of 3 years, Tessa, and her friends. We'd been living together for a year, building what I thought was a real future. The sun was shining, the conversation was light, and I was holding on to this perfect little secret, a surprise I'd been planning for our upcoming anniversary. Her friend Bree asked about our plans, and I felt this little jolt of excitement. I had secretly booked a weekend getaway to a beautiful vineyard she'd mentioned months ago, one she said she was dying to visit. I was about to say something, to maybe hint at the surprise, when Tessa laughed. It was a sharp, dismissive sound. "Oh, Colton's probably planning something super basic," she said, sipping her drink. "Last year he got me a handwritten letter." Her friends giggled, and my stomach just tightened into a knot. A handwritten letter. I remembered that night perfectly. I remembered pouring my heart out onto that paper, and I remembered her crying, telling me it was the most romantic gift she'd ever received. She told me our homemade dinners were her favorite dates. Now, those memories were being served up as a joke. "Like cute," she continued. "But I can't post a letter on Instagram, you know." Her friend Morgan chimed in. "Men never listen. That's why I just buy myself nice things." Tessa nodded eagerly. "Exactly. Colton thinks cooking dinner at home is romantic. Sir, I can get pasta anywhere." The whole table laughed. I just sat there, feeling my face get hot, feeling smaller with every word. I decided to just reveal the surprise. Maybe if she knew, she'd see I was listening. "The vineyard weekend should be nice," I said, my voice quieter than I intended. Tessa rolled her eyes. Actually rolled them. "A vineyard, babe. That's so predictable. Every basic couple does wine country." The air went out of my lungs. To make it worse, she then turned on her friend, insulting a trip her boyfriend had planned. Classic Tessa, I thought. Tear everyone else down to make herself look better. But she wasn't done with me. She started listing my failures. How my clothes were boring. How I played video games instead of taking her to expensive clubs. How I was responsible and saved my money instead of living life. And then came the line that stopped my heart. How I was too emotional about my mom's cancer diagnosis last year. The entire table went silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Even her friends knew she'd crossed a line. Bri whispered her name, a soft warning. "Tessa, that's kind of harsh." Tessa just waved her hand, completely oblivious. "What? I'm just being honest. He knows I keep it real, right, babe?" I looked at her. I really looked at her. Sitting there in the designer sunglasses I bought her, with her perfect nails freshly done on my credit card, publicly humiliating me. And it all became so clear. I stood up slowly. "You're absolutely right," I said, my voice steady. She smiled, thinking she'd won. "See? He gets it. And honestly," I continued, my voice getting stronger, "you're being disrespectful, and I'm too sensitive to tolerate disrespect." Her smile vanished. "Babe, sit down. You're embarrassing yourself." No, I said calmly. I'm removing myself from an embarrassing situation. Enjoy your brunch. I put cash on the table for my meal and walked out without looking back. I heard her laugh nervously, telling her friends, "He's just being dramatic. He'll be back." But I knew I wouldn't be back. I went straight home, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of clarity. She had champagne taste, but it was funded by my beer budget salary. I was a software developer making decent money, but I was paying for everything: the rent, her car, her phone, her shopping, all of it while she worked a part-time job. It was time to fix that. It took me less than an hour. First, I called my credit card companies and had her removed as an authorized user from all 3 of my cards, effective immediately. Second, I logged into my phone plan and removed her line. Third, I changed the passwords to every single streaming service we shared. Finally, I changed my banking logins just to be safe. Then, I sat down, booted up my video game, and waited. I didn't have to wait long. At 1:47 p.m., the calls started. I let them ring. Then the texts. My card got declined at Sephora. What's going on? Hello? Colton, pick up your phone now. 20 missed calls in an hour. Her friends started texting too, asking what happened, telling me Tessa was freaking out. Morgan even texted, "You really canceled her cards over a brunch conversation." I replied, "I removed her from my cards." "Yes," she shot back. "That's financial abuse." And I typed the words that I knew were the beginning of the end of this chapter of my life. No, financial abuse is using someone's money while publicly humiliating them. What I did is called boundaries. It wasn't long before the hurricane made landfall. A few hours after the brunch, Tessa stormed through the front door of our apartment, her face a mask of fury. "What did you do?" she demanded, her voice shaking. I didn't even look up from my laptop. "I took your advice," I said calmly. "I'm too sensitive, so I removed myself from situations that hurt my feelings. Like, for instance, paying for someone who thinks I'm basic and ungrateful." Her jaw dropped. "You canceled my phone. I couldn't even get an Uber home. Bri had to pay for me." "Sounds like you have a good friend in Bri," I replied. Maybe you shouldn't have insulted her boyfriend's romantic gestures right in front of her. She started pacing. The sharp click of her designer heels the ones I paid for chewing on the hardwood floors I paid for. "You can't just cut me off like this. I have a facial appointment tomorrow. I have plans this weekend." She stopped herself mid-sentence, catching the words before they could tumble out. The admission. The truth she'd been dancing around for years. "Can't afford what, Tessa?" I asked, finally looking at her. "The lifestyle you were just mocking me for funding?" Her face went through a whole cycle of emotions: anger, then panic, then cold calculation, and then the final stage, manipulation. Her expression softened. Her eyes welled up. "Baby, I'm sorry," she whispered. "I was just joking around with the girls, you know how I get." "I do know," I said, and the finality in my own voice surprised me. "That's the problem. I know exactly how you get." Her eyes darted around the room, desperate. "I'll make it up to you tonight. Whatever you want." "What I want," I said, standing up, "is for you to move out." Dead silence. The fake tears stopped instantly. You're kicking me out? Over brunch?" "Number, I'm kicking you out over 3 years of disrespect that just happened to culminate at brunch today," I clarified. "You have 30 days. That's the legal requirement." "Where am I supposed to go?" she cried, the real panic finally setting in. I just shrugged. "That's not my sensitive, basic problem anymore." The next 48 hours were an absolute masterclass in entitlement. The following morning, she emerged from the bedroom, fully dressed for work, acting as if nothing had happened. "I need gas money," she said, not even looking at me. I just said, "Number." Her head snapped up. "How am I supposed to get to work?" I smiled faintly. "The same way everyone else without a sugar daddy does. You figure it out." 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. A text from her. Her car wouldn't start. Dead battery. She needed me to call AAA. Except, she'd forgotten that I paid for that too. And I had canceled it along with everything else. She missed her shift at the boutique that day. By that evening, she had launched her social media victim tour. A series of Instagram stories, complete with sad-face selfies. When you realize you were dating a narcissist, financial abuse is real, ladies. Starting over from nothing, but at least I'm free. The comments from her shallow friends were all supportive, of course. But then, a comment appeared that changed the narrative. It was from Bree. The same Bree who was at the brunch. "Girl, you literally humiliated him at brunch for buying you handwritten letters instead of Cartier. This ain't it." Tessa deleted the comment immediately, but the damage was done. Bri then posted her own story. "When people rewrite history, and you were literally there," followed by a massive eye roll emoji. The group chat, I later found out, completely imploded. And that's when her ex-boyfriend, Nathan, entered the chat. Rye's boyfriend reached out to me. "Bro, Nathan wants your number. Says he's been waiting 3 years for this." The next day, her mom, Paula, called me. She said Tessa had told her I'd gone crazy and overreacted to a little joke. I didn't argue. I just forwarded Paula the screenshots. Texts from Tessa calling my recent promotion cute, but asking when I'd make real money. A message where she said my dad being a truck driver was embarrassing. A complaint that the $500 birthday gift I'd bought her was cheap. Paula was silent for a long time. I didn't raise her to be this way," she finally said, her voice heavy with disappointment. Tessa, meanwhile, was panicking. She posted in every local Facebook group, looking for a roommate in an upscale area, with no drama. When people asked for her budget, she'd reply, "Negotiable," which everyone correctly translated to broke. Then, just as I thought it couldn't get any stranger, she soft-launched a new relationship on Instagram. A picture of a man's hand holding a coffee cup. Sometimes angels come when you need them most. My friend Kai recognized the tattoo on the hand instantly. "Yo, bro, that's Tyler from the gym," he texted me. He's a personal trainer, lives with 4 roommates, and drives a 2003 Honda. She had downgraded from a software developer to a struggling trainer in less than 48 hours. The math wasn't mathing. What she didn't understand was that her entire adult life was a house of cards built on my foundation. For 2 years, I had been building her credit score as an authorized user on my cards. So when she applied for her own credit card, she was denied. When she tried to get a new phone plan, they wanted a $400 deposit she didn't have. Her entire financial identity was tied to me, and I had just cut the cord. I was sitting at home, actually enjoying a quiet dinner, when I got a call from an unknown number. It was the Vineyard. They were calling to confirm my cancellation. "Yes, that's correct," I said. The woman on the other end paused. "Okay, sir. And we're so sorry to hear the proposal package won't be needed either." My blood ran cold. The proposal package. Yes. I had been planning to propose to Tessa on that trip. I had already bought the ring. An $8,000 ring that was currently sitting in my sock drawer. Thank God for that brunch. It didn't just save me from another fight. It saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. The appointment to return that ring was tomorrow, and I couldn't wait. The next day, I walked into the jewelry store with the velvet ring box feeling heavy in my pocket. It didn't feel like I was returning a broken promise. It felt like I was disarming a bomb. Harold, the jeweler, was this kind, older man who had patiently walked me through a dozen different options over multiple visits. He remembered me instantly and gave me a sympathetic smile. "Cold feet, son," he asked gently, already preparing the return paperwork. I let out a short, humorless laugh. "More like I dodged a bullet," I said, and I briefly explained what had happened. How she had publicly shamed me for not buying her expensive enough gifts, right after I had finalized the purchase of this very ring. Harold's expression shifted from sympathy to something else. Recognition. He stopped what he was doing and looked at me intently. "Wait a minute," he said slowly. "Describe your girlfriend again." After I did, he nodded. "Is this the same young lady who came in here last month, asking about upgrades to a ring she hadn't even seen yet?" My blood went cold. It felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. "What?" I whispered. He turned his monitor toward me and pulled up the store's visitor log. And there it was. An appointment from a few weeks prior. Tessa's name, next to her friend Morgan's. Harold explained that they had come in, pointed out the ring I had on hold, and asked him to price out replacing the 1.5 carat center stone with something more substantial. She had been planning the upgrade for my proposal before I had even proposed. I just stood there, speechless. The audacity, the sheer calculated greed of it. Harold shook his head, processed the full refund, and then disappeared into the back. He returned not just with my receipt, but with a chilled bottle of champagne. "For dodging that bullet, son," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. "This one's on the house." The universe, it seemed, was confirming I had made the right choice. But Tessa's spiral was just getting started. A few days later, I got a call from Diane, her now former manager at the boutique. "Colton, I just wanted to warn you," she said, her voice low. "She was fired for taking products home without paying, but she's telling everyone that you called the store and got her fired. She's making threats about suing you for defamation." Sure enough, a day later, an email landed in my inbox. The sender was legaleagle788@gmail.com. The email, written entirely in the Comic Sans font, demanded $50,000 in damages for emotional distress and interference with employment, or they would pursue all available legal options. I forwarded it to my cousin, who's an actual lawyer. His response came back in minutes. "Laugh my ass off. This is written in Comic Sans. No legitimate lawyer uses a Gmail account for official correspondence. Also, this is borderline extortion. Want me to respond?" I told him yes, absolutely. Meanwhile, her apartment hunt was turning into a public spectacle. My coworker, James, came to my desk one morning, trying to suppress a grin. His roommate is Tyler, the personal trainer Angel. James told me Tessa had been dragging Tyler to apartment viewings, pretending they were a serious couple. "Bro, your ex is insane," James said. "She told one landlord that Tyler makes 6 figures as a trainer. He makes like $30,000 a year, maybe. It gets better." Tessa had apparently described herself as a fashion executive between positions. The landlord, suspicious, Googled her name on the spot and immediately found her Instagram posts about being a homeless victim of financial abuse. They were rejected from 6 different places in 3 days. The absolute peak of this whole mess came late one night when my phone rang. It was Tessa's mom, Paula, and her dad, Robert, was on speakerphone. Son, Robert began, his voice weary. We need to talk about Tessa. She's telling everyone you're abusive, and while we know that's not true, she's our daughter. What he's trying to say is, we'll pay you to take her back. Paula cut in, her voice strained. I nearly choked on my water. Excuse me. She can't come home, Colton, Paula explained, desperation creeping into her voice. The last time she lived with us, she maxed out my Macy's card and sold Robert's favorite golf clubs while we were on vacation. We can't go through that again. Robert cleared his throat. We'll pay her portion of the rent. Directly to you. $1,000 a month. Just let her stay there. I was stunned into silence. They wanted to pay me. Not to date their daughter, not to fix things, but to simply house her because she was too destructive to live with them. You want to pay me to be her landlord? I asked, trying to wrap my head around it. Please, Colton, Paula begged. Just until she gets on her feet and gets some therapy. I took a deep breath. I felt a pang of pity for them, truly, but my own peace was too new, too precious. Paula, Robert, I'm sorry for what you're going through, but no amount of money is worth my self-respect. The answer is no. After her parents' desperate attempt to bribe me into housing their daughter, I really thought I'd seen the bottom of the barrel. I was wrong. When you cut off the money supply to someone who has never had to support their own lifestyle, their next move is to find a new supply. A few days later, my phone buzzed with a message from Bree. It was a screenshot, no caption needed. It was a profile from a sugar baby website. Tessa's profile. The picture was a professional-looking headshot I had paid for a few years ago. The bio was a work of fiction so audacious I almost had to admire it. Sophisticated fashion expert seeking a generous gentleman who appreciates the finer things, it read. Temporarily between luxury accommodations. Cartier and Chanel appreciated. The profile was a fantasy, but reality, as she was documenting in a series of furious Twitter rants, was far less glamorous. The generous gentlemen she was encountering were offering her $50 for coffee dates, or were married men looking for a discreet side piece. She wanted to be whisked away on private jets. They wanted to know if she was available on Tuesday afternoons. One of her tweets went semi-viral in its own cringe-worthy way. The audacity of men on here thinking I'm a maid, she wrote. I am a luxury experience, someone replied. Ma'am, you're homeless in 21 days. Maybe lower the luxury bar a little. By this point, our entire friend group had fractured. It wasn't a clean break, it was a total implosion. Team Tessa consisted of Morgan, and that was it. Team Reality, however, was a growing alliance. It was led by Bree, who had started a group chat called Recovery from Tessa. It included her boyfriend Derek, my friend Kai, and even Nathan, her ex-boyfriend from years ago. That group chat was a revelation. It was like a support group for people who had survived a natural disaster. Nathan shared his stories, and they were eerily similar to mine. She had convinced him to co-sign on a car for her, and then simply stopped making payments, wrecking his credit. When he cut her off, she told his family he was abusive. When he started dating someone new, she keyed his car. Bree had her own stories. Tessa had once borrowed $500 from her for an emergency surgery, which Bree later found out was for Botox. She spread a rumor that Bree's engagement ring was fake. She even tried to seduce Derek once, framing it as a test of his loyalty to her friend. Reading these messages, I felt this strange wave of relief. I wasn't a fool who had missed the red flags. I was just the latest victim in a very long, established pattern. Just when I thought things had reached peak insanity, my phone rang with a call from a local hospital. My heart leaped into my throat. The woman on the line said Tessa had been admitted and had listed me as her emergency contact. All the anger and frustration vanished, replaced by that primal fear when you think someone you once cared about might be seriously hurt. I rushed over, my mind racing. When I got to the ER, I found her sitting up on a gurney, hooked up to a heart monitor. She wasn't unconscious or in pain. She was being treated for a panic attack. The moment she saw me, her entire demeanor changed. Her face lit up with a triumphant, relieved smile. "Baby, you came," she said, her voice suddenly weak and fragile. "I knew you still cared." She reached for my hand. "The doctor says I need stability in my life. This whole separation, it's literally killing me." The doctor, standing nearby, looked exhausted. He'd seen this show before. "Ma'am, you had a panic attack," he said flatly. "You're not dying." "But I could die from stress," she insisted, looking back at me with wide, pleading eyes. "Colton, please. I need you." I looked at her. Then I looked at the tired doctor. I felt nothing. No anger, no pity, just a profound sense of emptiness where my love for her used to be. I turned to the doctor. "Is she medically cleared to be discharged?" I asked. He nodded. "Yes, she's perfectly fine to leave." "Great," I said. I looked at the nurse at the station nearby. "Please remove me as her emergency contact from all your records." Then I turned and walked out of the hospital without another word. I later found out she had to call Morgan for a ride, who complained for an hour about the cost of gas to drive all the way out there. As of today, she has 21 days until she has to be out of my apartment. She has 0 job prospects, as the fake lawyer email has scared off potential employers. She has been approved for 0 apartments. According to a source in the recovery chat, she has exactly $73 in her bank account. Meanwhile, I'm thriving. I paid off my main credit card with the refund from the engagement ring. I booked an international trip with the money I'm saving. And I started therapy to really unpack why I ever accepted that kind of treatment in the first place. Yesterday, I took the first step to ensure she could never pull a stunt like that again. I started the paperwork for a restraining order. The last 2 weeks before the move-out deadline were a masterclass in what happens when a deeply entitled person smacks headfirst into real-world consequences. The final act of her social media drama was a public spectacle. Tyler, the personal trainer she had tried to use as a prop, started dating a nurse named Samantha. When Samantha posted a picture of them at a nice restaurant, Tessa had always complained I was too cheap to take her to. Tessa's jealousy exploded. She commented on the photo, "Enjoy my sloppy seconds, sis. He can't afford that place anyway." Samantha's reply was swift and brutal. "I paid because I have a job, and he's nobody's second since you never even dated. He told me everything." Tyler himself then commented, "You asked me to lie to landlords and called me a broke loser when I said no. Please stop telling people we dated." The post went viral in our city. Tessa deleted her entire Instagram account within hours. With 1 week left, she tried her final, most audacious manipulation. She showed up at my door with a U-Haul and a group of 8 random men. "These are my friends, here to help me move my things," she announced. I looked at the group of day laborers she'd clearly hired off a street corner. "Tessa, none of this is yours. We live together," she shrieked. "Half of everything is legally mine." "Okay," I said calmly. "Name one thing in this apartment that you purchased." She looked around frantically, her eyes landing on the television. "That television? That's mine." I pulled up the Best Buy receipt from 2021 on my phone. Says otherwise. The couch, IKEA delivery, my name, my credit card, the dishes, wedding gift from my aunt. The workers were starting to look very uncomfortable, One older man stepped forward. "Ma'am, you told us this was your place and your ex wouldn't leave." "It is my place," she insisted. "He's stealing from me." I showed the man the lease agreement with my name, and only my name, on it. His whole crew apologized to me and left immediately. Tessa had prepaid them $200 she didn't have. I could practically hear the check bouncing. Her last resort was to call the police. Again. This time, she claimed domestic violence and theft. 2 officers showed up, looking thoroughly exhausted before they even got out of their car. They had clearly been here before. "Sir, we need to ask you some questions," one said. "Of course," I replied, handing them a folder. "Here's the lease. Here's the 30-day eviction notice I legally served her. Here's photo documentation of my belongings, and here is my lawyer's business card." They reviewed everything silently. Then, the older cop turned to Tessa, his patience gone. "Ma'am, filing a false police report is a serious crime." "It's not false," she sobbed. "He's abusing me. He took away my whole life." The officer sighed. "Did he hit you?" "No, but..." "Did he threaten you?" "No, but he removed me from his credit cards and phone plan." "Ma'am," the cop said, his voice flat, "that's not financial abuse. That's called breaking up. You need to leave the premises now, or we will arrest you for trespassing." She finally left, screaming that I would regret this. On the final day, she showed up with Morgan to collect her things. "Where is my stuff?" she demanded, looking around the empty living room. "My clothes? My shoes? My makeup?" "Oh, that stuff," I said, handing her a single key. "It's in storage unit 247. You have 30 days to get it before the contents are considered abandoned." The storage facility was 40 minutes away and cost $50 a month she didn't have. Morgan's boyfriend, who had driven them, just looked at me with a slow nod of respect. Later that week, Tessa created a new Instagram account to post one last shot at me. A selfie from her new room in a sketchy weekly rental, with a long caption about surviving abuse. But eagle-eyed followers noticed the mattress on the floor, the water stains on the ceiling, and what looked like roaches in the background. The final comment, the one that broke her, came from her ex, Nathan. "Fun fact," he wrote, "she did this exact same thing to me 3 years ago. Congrats on your freedom at Colton." That was months ago. Life now is peaceful. I ran into Bree and Derek last week. We had a drink, and Bree told me that Tessa, in an act of supreme audacity, had applied for a job at the boutique Bree now manages, and had listed me as a reference. Bree told the hiring manager the truth. Tessa didn't get the job. As for me, I'm thriving. I'm in a new relationship with a woman named Lauren. She's a teacher, and she thinks handwritten letters are the most romantic thing in the world. My basic pasta dinners? She says they're restaurant quality. We cook together, and she never once has the urge to post it on Instagram. I got another promotion at work. It turns out my productivity skyrocketed without constant criticism. I took that solo international trip and it was the best experience of my life. I got one last text from Tessa a few weeks ago, from yet another new number. It was an apology. She said she was in court-ordered therapy after the false police report. She said she knew she was toxic and that I deserved better. I didn't respond. The last I heard, Bri got a message from her, asking a strange question. "Can you ask Colton if he still has that handwritten letter? I just want to remember what it felt like when someone actually loved me." The audacity. The letter she mocked is the one thing she wants back. I do still have it. It's framed, tucked away in my closet. Not as a reminder of her, but as a reminder of who I was, and a promise to myself to never again lose that person trying to be enough for someone for whom nothing would ever be enough. And breathe. What a journey. It's amazing, isn't it, how quickly a life can be dismantled and rebuilt. Colton's story started with such public, casual cruelty at a brunch table, but it ended with this quiet, profound sense of peace. His revenge wasn't about yelling or fighting back in the same way. The best revenge, it seems, was just letting Tessa experience life without his support. He just stopped. He stopped paying for his own disrespect, and in the silence that followed, he found himself again. But this story leaves me with so many questions, and I know you all will have thoughts on this. I really want to know what you think. First, let's talk about that moment at brunch. Colton made a snap decision. He didn't go home to argue or discuss it. He went home and methodically cut every single tie. Some people told him he was being too harsh. So, what do you think? Was his immediate, clean break an act of strength and self-preservation? Or should he have tried to talk it through one last time? Is there a line of disrespect that, once crossed, means all conversation is pointless? And that brings me to the big one, the money. Tessa and her friend Morgan immediately labeled what he did as financial abuse. Colton called it boundaries. This is such a complicated issue in modern relationships. When one person is financially supporting the other, what are the rules? Does creating that dependency, even if it's entered into willingly, give you a responsibility to not pull the plug without warning? Or is it your money, and you have the absolute right to stop funding a lifestyle for someone who publicly humiliates you? Where is the line between a partnership and a transaction? I also can't stop thinking about the friends, especially Bree. She was there. She saw it all, but she only spoke up after the fact. She even told Colton later, "We should have said something sooner." What is our role as friends when we witness a dynamic like this? Is it our place to step in and risk the friendship, or do we stay out of it? Is staying silent a form of enabling the toxic behavior? Or is it just respecting the privacy of a couple's relationship? And finally, that last text message from Tessa, the apology. She's in court-ordered therapy. She says she understands now. She admits she destroyed the best thing in her life. Colton chose not to respond. Was that the right move? Does a person who has caused so much pain still deserve the grace of a reply when they finally apologize? Or is silence the only way to protect your own peace and ensure the cycle doesn't start all over again? Her asking for that letter she mocked just complicates it even more. Was it a genuine sign of remorse? Or one last, desperate attempt at manipulation? It really shows you that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just quietly close the door. If this story made you feel understood, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Cocoa Table Reddit. Every follow and comment gives me the motivation to keep sharing these real, emotional stories with you. And if you have a story of your own, feel free to share it in the comments. I'm always here to listen. Now, let's talk about it in the comments.